Thanks for listening to Fluff and Crunch, where we talk about the connection and sometimes disconnect between system, setting, and story in tabletop RPGs.
There we're recording. All right. Good morning, Chris. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How about you?
I'm on the mend, but not completely mended. This is what happens when you are middle-aged and you get the flu. It
Yeah, you're
lingers.
me like 2 weeks or so ago when I was
No,
coughing
it's
through
been
the
about
entire episode.
it's been about a week and a half, and
Yeah,
about a week. Yeah, it's just yeah. Anyway,
you caught my cold, except that's impossible because
I downloaded it from you.
yeah, I'm pretty sure we can't transmit colds over
I
Zoom
rolled a
calls.
critical failure on my endurance save or my con save, and I contracted the illness. But I'm on the mend. So we're back. This is good. We've talked about some format changes and content changes and so on and so forth, and we'll roll those out slowly over time as our schedules permit. But you wanted to talk about this thing about which I know nothing.
Well, like you said, we were looking at like, well, what else can we talk about? There's not enough 2D20 content for us to talk about,
Not that we're
and
interested in.
that's a good point.
And that could be a whole
And
episode unto itself.
we've done a lot of role playing, just generic role playing content, and there's more we'll do. But it's kind of thing where that's where our audience wants to shout out to something they want, which is why didn't you do an episode on X, Y, or Z? That'd be useful. But while we were thinking of other things to do, I said, well, this is adjacent. Star Wars. Star Wars is a
Sure.
big role playing game property. Star Wars is a big media property, and they just released a new open world game, which I have been playing. And I said, well, I can always review that because it has been in most quarters. No, in the wrong quarters on the internet, it has been unfairly hammered. So I thought it'd be nice to have a voice of positivity
Okay.
against all
No,
that.
I would love to know about it. I love it. I mean, I now it's funny. Moments ago before we started recording, I I thought this was an online game. I was wrong.
I
Now
wish.
you pointed out the fact that I know nothing about any kind of computer-based games today, and that is an accurate statement. Um, so give me the 30-second elevator pitch as to what Outlaws is in terms of like it as a technical entity, and then we can talk about it, talk about the story and the how it works and things like that.
So Star Wars Outlaws is a third person, single player, so it's not online, open world, I guess, action adventure game. So it's by a company called Massive, and I'd love to tell you what they've done, but I can't. But the publisher is Ubisoft, and Ubisoft are famous for like Assassin's Creed. That's their big, amongst other things. They have loads of it, but Assassin's Creed is one of the big things. So a lot of people unfairly right start going, "Oh, this is just Assassin's Creed with a Star Wars overlay." That's pretty far. But that's your elevator pitch. It's third person, so the camera's always behind the character. You play one character. You can't create your character. You're stuck playing this character, Kay Vess, which was another lot of wailing on the internet because she's female and not attractive enough. So that's a reason straight away to not play the game.
She's
I kid
also
you.
not real, but
Yes.
anyway.
But
Sorry,
so that's
I
that's
hate
a
that
reason
crap so
not to
much.
play the game because I don't like the main character, so I'm not going to play it. Well, but they haven't even tried anyway. Um, so that's the kind of what category it would fall into. So it would, it's not a million miles away from things like Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption, neither of which you've probably heard of Grand Theft Auto, unless
I've
you've been
heard of
living
these
under
things. I
unless
just
you've
know
been living
nothing
under a rock.
about them.
But in those cases, that's an unfair comparison because GTA has one game every I think it's 11 years since the last one. The Red Dead games are a cowboy game like that. Again, we have 10 years. But this game has not been in development for 12 years, and it isn't the biggest, most expensive game ever. So but that's the idea. You have a character, and right at the start of the game, you get involved. You basically get into some trouble, and you spend the rest of the game trying to earn enough money to get yourself out of the trouble and lead a better life. It's a proper rags to riches from the gutter to the out of the gutter kind of story.
So there is a plot, there is a story. This is one of the things that I find fascinating about computer games And I guess some online games, like I said, I am thoroughly ignorant about how these things function nowadays. Uh, but it sounds like they're becoming more like books where you play the character.
I mean, some are.
As in the authors, the designers
Yeah.
have written a story. There are characters, there are antagonists, protagonists, there are foils, associates, there are all these different things. And you take the role of a character. In this case, you don't have a choice. And you're dropped into the story and you work your way through the story as they've created it. And then to what degree is that railroaded, or to what degree is that open? How much, I would, that obviously varies from game to
Well,
game.
so
But it
that
sounds like
varies.
that's what this would be as an
Yeah,
experience.
this varies quite a lot from that in terms. So the two biggest Star Wars games recently have been, there was a game called Jedi. It was Jedi Fallen Order and then Jedi Survivor. Those are single player games, but they pretty much they're one story. And you basically, I think you have choices of occasionally which planet you do in which order, but there is basically things you have to do.
Okay, so
And
that's kind of like plot
there's not a
driven,
huge amount of
linear.
choice there. You go to this planet, you go to this point on this planet doing this thing, and there are stories. And there was some choice in the second one. The first one didn't have a lot, but they were pretty linear. This is what we would call an open world game in that you have a lot more. So there is a main story. You could just go through the entire game only playing the main stories, going from quest to quest to quest, but you can deviate a lot. So and a lot of the deviation is kind of baked into it. It has a very clever system in the background of it. There are four criminal syndicates. So you have the Huts that you will have heard of,
Of course you
Jabba.
do.
I've already met Jabba at this point. I don't know how far I am through the game. Let's hypothetically say I'm halfway. I don't know. So I've met Jabba. Then there are the Pike Syndicate, who have turned up in a few things, and they're quite closely tied with the Empire. There's Crimson Dawn, which is the bad guy syndicate in Solo that then kind of has been pushed over and then has kind of been coming back in the comics recently. And there is another one who it's kind of like the Shiga clan or something like that. I don't know if they're new to the game or they've been mentioned. Those are the ones I've not heard of before.
Okay.
And they have missions they can give you, but most of those missions involve screwing over one of the other syndicates. And a lot of the time we do, right, I'm going to do this mission for these guys, but it's going to piss off these other guys, but it's going to make these guys like me more. And so I've worked really early on very hard to do lots and lots of missions for Crimson Dawn, because doing that did things like gets me better deals with their people that sell stuff. So I save money if I go to their merchants. I can get into their areas without them just pulling guns on me the minute I do. Whereas at the start of the game, when I drove through the Pike area, they would all shoot at me. And eventually you get new clothes, which is the main reason I did it. I wanted the outfit.
You have no option about the character that you play. You play
No,
this character. How much over time, and it sounds like there's at least some, how much flexibility do you have in customizing, in changing, in making personalizing the character, aside from just cosmetic things like, oh, my
Yeah,
character's wearing a red jacket instead of a blue one.
it doesn't really go into sort of the role playing kind of thing, because there are a lot of these kind of games, so particularly a lot of the Assassin's Creed game recently, you would have you'd spend points on things. So for example, the Witcher series, which again is an open world game, but again it has a TV series, it's based on a book. But the Witcher series, you spend a lot of time putting points into, I want to be really good at this thing and I'm not bothered about this thing, and you can't do everything. This pretty much, as you play, you will unlock all of the stuff. So if you play through everything, you'll have the same everything unlocked the same as another player.
Okay.
So it is really just cosmetic.
Okay.
I think one of the things people were hoping for is like a truly open world Star Wars game where you make your own character, but kind of like if Star Wars: The Old Republic exists. There is an online game where you can make your own character and do what you want with them. That game's still out there, as far as I know. This is not this.
You just made me think, when does Outlaws take place within
So
the...
Outlaws takes place. I thought it took place after the Death Star blew up, but having
Which one?
seen something in Jabba's palace, I now know it takes place after the Empire.
Okay.
The first one.
Okay.
So I think it takes place between Empire and Return of the Jedi.
Okay. So it is.
I know that
it's
because there's
it's within the good movies era.
Yes, it's definitely in that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I get to shoot stormtroopers as opposed to not stormtroopers.
Something else. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, so this is a like you said, single player computer game, open world, but has a plot, has some limitations, and I don't say that in a negative way for character development because it's really not your own character.
Mhm.
What do you see? Because obviously our main focus is pen and paper games. What do you see as maybe valuable out of this for a tabletop game, either Star Wars or otherwise, or maybe
I
even
think
in a general sense?
I mean, one of the thing that's great about this game is that it feels like Star Wars, and I think it feels like Star Wars more than most other Star Wars games. There's a couple of games where, like, a couple of the space games, you felt really like you were in, like an X-wing or TIE fighter. A couple of those games have been
I
good
remember
because it's
those.
easy. You just have to be in the right ship, and you're shooting the opponent's ships. That's a relatively easy game to get right. Down on the ground is more difficult, and a lot of these games, you play them, you think, it didn't feel like so. In here, you're walking around Mos Eisley. So there's at least four anyway. There's at least four planets you're on, and one of the four main planets is Tatooine. Now, I didn't start on Tatooine. The first planet you're on feels a bit different, and it's got different aliens. But when you're walking around a town and there's stormtroopers there, and some of the Imperial commanders are corrupt and stuff. That's good. So there's lots of good story ideas that you could pick up from, like, if you playing Edge of the Empire, it would be perfect for Edge of the Empire. It's basically like an Edge of the Empire game.
Okay.
This isn't rebellion. You're not joining the
Right,
rebels.
right,
I mean, you might be fighting the Empire, but mostly because they've pissed you off and they're easy
right.
targets.
Because you broke one of their laws, like, not because you're trying to topple it.
Yeah. And there's no Jedi stuff. We've just had two other games where you can play as a Jedi if you really want to live your Jedi power fantasies. Go back and play the two Jedi games. But certainly when I get to Tatooine, being able to walk around Mos Eisley and find, like, Mika played a bit the other day and found Luke's farm. So that just
Oh,
for the
that's
kind of
cool.
the setting of the being in there, that's just really cool being able to see this, and it feels like playing in Star Wars. And so then there are some of the story elements that you could easily, like, if you were a GM and you play this game, you'd very easily be able to go, okay, I like that little idea. I'm gonna drop that in as like a side quest. Because there are lots of little bits you just pick up things just from being there. I mean, the whole idea of sort of these criminal syndicates vying with each other, I haven't really seen that anywhere in the because most of the media deals with, like, the heroes doing heroic
Yeah.
stuff.
Book of Boba Fett kind of played
God,
at that
God.
sort of, but we
Th-
won't talk
th-
about that.
this is what, if Book of Boba Fett had been like this, like genuine tension between different criminal syndicates, instead of just Boba Fett turns up and says, "I'm the boss, everyone bow down to me," and some people shoot him. This would have been it would have been a lot better. Yeah, but this is kind of that idea. So there are definitely things you can take from it, and there's planets that I don't remember from other things, but I could be wrong because there's lots of planets in Star Wars and I don't
Sure.
memorize them all. And, like,
Yeah. So,
aliens
I
you see in
mean,
places and ships and all sorts.
this is, I mean, in this respect, it's a little like, Star Trek, that the canon and the different buckets of canon, depending on where you turn and how you define canon, is so huge that there are plenty of things out there that you've never heard of that someone says, "Hey, that would be cool. Let's
Yeah.
incorporate that." I could see turning to this for story ideas. I also, and characters. I could also see. I mean, I hadn't thought about the Edge of the Empire. That totally makes sense. Um, I could also see if you just wanted to scratch. It sounds to me like this enables you to scratch a Star Wars itch.
100%. I mean, when I first saw this game was coming out, I think it was when I was in around when I was in Disney in Star Wars. And
Hmm.
so, like, this is the thing that takes me back to, I get to pretend I'm in Star, because that's what Disney was like. I
Sure.
just spent time just Edge of the Empire. No, it's not Edge of the Empire. What is it called? Galaxy's Edge
Yeah.
in Hollywood studios in Florida, just thinking, like, I'm in Star Wars.
Yep.
It's real. I'm here.
It's so good. It's
Um,
so well done, and so like all encompassing. You can suspend your sense of
yeah.
disbelief.
And this is kind of the same. I'm quite happy to just, like, you can just spend time. There's so many people on the forums could, like, I've been on the starting planet for 14 hours. I don't want to leave because they're just enjoying the wandering around, being in a Star Wars world with no actual pressure to have to go, because there is stuff there. There is just people there and things to do. And you can play Sabac. There's other little games you can play. You can go and speed a race. So there's all these kind of little things that you can do and that you can find to do.
So
Um,
it's so what you're saying is that the game offers more opportunity to just interact in the
yeah,
world than just through the plot.
Yes.
or through the plot related things.
Yeah. And then there's things you keep occasionally, like literally you'll come across someone talking to someone else about something, and then that gives you a place you can go and look at on the map. And that's just in the town. I mean, the towns are very busy. It's still not perfect. There'll be people wandering around the towns who don't have any dialogue and don't do anything. They're just there to provide to kind of the sense of you're in a busy town. But it is, it's the first time this, it's the first of this game. So a lot of people, oh, it's not as good as this. And most things that people compare it to and complain about might be on their, third or fourth iteration, or have massive teams behind them, and so on. So a lot of them, it's like this game is not perfect. The controls aren't amazing, like the shooting isn't great, but there are a couple of cool things. So you do have a speeder bike. Now, one thing a lot of people said is, I really want to be able to jump on somebody else's speeder bike, and I'm totally there with them. You'll be outside a cantina, and there's someone else's speeder bike sitting there, and you think, well, I just want to get on their speeder bike and drive off on their speeder bike. But you can't. You can only ride your speeder bike. That's irritating and feels like that feels like something they could easily do in a sequel, like very easily.
Right.
You only have one ship, but you do still have a ship. And when you take off in your ship, you do have a very nice, you take off, you go through the clouds, and then you're in space and you're flying your ship. And you can do, all of the planets have like a space area around them where you can do space missions. That's quite a lot. This game easily could have had you fly from one planet to another and there's no space stuff at all.
Mm-hmm.
And people probably would have been happy with that. But they have space missions and people aren't happy with that because people always want more. It's Star Wars fans. Star Wars fans are the worst.
It doesn't matter. Fans.
Yes.
I'll just say it. Fans, like committed fans, are the worst because they think that they have ownership of this thing. They think the property somehow owes them something, and they have some kind of ownership stake in it because they like it so much. And unfortunately, yeah, people just suck. I think the thing
I've said it quite a few times recently, but particularly YouTube, because YouTube's an easy way of making money. You make a lot more money on YouTube if you say how much you hate things,
sure,
and how things are terrible.
Yeah.
And then the people that agree with you will jump on that bandwagon.
Yeah.
If you tell people you like things, then the people who disagree with you will jump up and down and tell you how you're wrong. But yeah, if you can shout loudly how much you hate stuff, that gets you views. And then there are definitely people on the internet who saying stuff I don't think they believe because they know it gets them views. And unfortunately on YouTube, views is money.
Yeah.
It's not. So that is a problem.
Well, and it becomes like this arms race of who can be snarkier and who can, in their minds, provide the wittiest burn or the wittiest smart mouth comment, and it's just stupid. It's destructive for the sake of drawing attention to oneself. I think you're absolutely right. You go through and it's like gaming. It's like tabletop RPG YouTubes. You are best off in building an audience to always mention and point to D&D. And what are you left with doing then? You're either being a slobbering fanboy and being WotC's little lapdog, or you're saying that everything about D&D sucks. Like there's nothing which is closer to the truth. But you're just there isn't a conversation. It's just who can sound more shrill and provocative.
So some of the criticisms of this game are rubbish. Now, one of the criticisms of the game right at the start was the cost. Now, to be fair, it's the same cost as other modern games.
I'm sorry, is the what?
The cost, the price of it.
Okay, yeah.
So straight up front, this would have cost me £70 for the basic version, which I'm guessing is either like $90 or $100. But that's what games cost. So on console anyway, PC would be cheaper. That's what games cost now.
Wow.
But then they had like a special edition and a super special edition, which added in like early access, or added in what you'll have now is a season pass, and a season pass will be extra downloadable stuff or new missions that are going to come. Every game has that, but that then starts getting to sort of £140. Again, you're over $150. Wow. But that is what they will charge for games now. And what this game doesn't have, which is really good, is a lot of games nowadays, as well as paying for it and paying for the season pass, then they'll find ways of charging you extra stuff for like in-game currency. You can pay real world currency for in-game currency on top of the game you've already bought. And this does not have that, thankfully, because that would drive me mad.
Yeah, I'm seeing this. I'm looking at. I'm seeing this anywhere from $70 US for PlayStation 5 to $130 for Xbox or something. And yeah,
And that's the, if you get it on a disc, it's always cheaper. But if you get it from Microsoft or Sony, you pay full price. You get the advantage of it's downloaded. You don't have to mess around with a disc, but you've paid full whack for it. Now, luckily, this is on the company that makes this, Ubisoft, have this game subscription thing called Ubisoft Plus, which cost me, I'm going to say it's costing me £15 a month. So again, roughly $18, $90. And I've downloaded this game for that. So I could really just play this game for 2 months and then stop. Now, okay, I don't then have the game, but I've basically had the game for half price. I'm not going to do that because there's a bunch of other games on the platform and there's a new Assassin's Creed game coming out. But I can see myself getting to sort of March going, yeah, I don't need to play that right now. And I just cancel my subscription. And when I want to, I pick it back. Same thing I do with, other TV subscriptions, cancel the subscription for a bit, wait till there's something else I want, and then sign it back up. So, although that doesn't work on PS5, but that is actually handy. I've saved quite a bit. In theory, I could save myself money. Playing this.
Okay, but what you're saying, what I'm hearing is that price-wise, you believe that this is within the mainstream of what games cost nowadays. Okay, back to just real quick. I'm sure that there are people listening, excuse me, watching, who play games like this, like you do. You mentioned that there were some not bugs, but some things that you thought weren't terrific. I mean, no game is perfect. What are some things for people who play computer games that you think are, yeah, listen, if you're going to get this game, I don't think these 2 or 3 aspects of it are top notch. And then what are some things that you think as a game, as a computer game, it does particularly well? So for people listening, thinking they're going to get it, like, oh yeah, I can look forward to this.
One of the things that's kind of annoying, especially early on, is you have a lot of missions where you basically have to do stealth. So you have to sneak past people. And there's lots of other games where the stealth is either a lot easier or a lot clearer. It's like, it's very clear that where the bad guy's going to go, or you can see exactly where the bad guy's looking, because there'll be something on the map that shows it. And so it's just super easy to stay out of the bad guy's vision and go where you want to. This does not do that. It's very easy to kind of walk around a corner and there's a bad guy there and you got seen. And a lot of the time when this happens, sometimes it just starts a massive fight, but then you've blown it. And that's not so bad because there's missions where you blow it and then you can fight your way out. But there's other ones where you get seen and that's it, auto fail, and you have to play the mission again. That's really frustrating. There was one mission I had to sort of try 10, 15 times because I kept failing the stealth bit.
Let me ask you really quickly on that, though. Is it that, do you think the stealth function is, for lack of a better word, broken? Or do you think it is just more challenging?
I think it is more challenging. I think there's a lot of games that the people have got too used to them being too easy. So I can think of some of the Batman games where you're at a higher thing, the people don't look up. You can basically stay out of view all of the time with ease, and it's not difficult. And you cherry pick who you're going to pick people off, because this isn't that straightforward, and you don't have some special way of making sure exactly where the bad guys are going. There are things you can play with, and I'll come back to one of the things that does help you with this. I think if you play the game cleverly, and again, I'll come to one of the clever things the game does, it's not that bad. They are apparently going to patch it, because that's one of the things the games they can do now. They've gone, oh, maybe we've made it a bit too difficult. I don't think there was just one mission earlier on that I found particularly bad. Since then, I think once you get the hang of it, and you get some extra little sort of tricks you can do, it stops being an issue. But it was because it was very, very early on that there was one particularly bad mission. And I think there's a lot of people that have played it and gone, that's terrible, and have never played any further. And then they've gone online to rant about how terrible the game is.
We got some people, though, some bitchy people who get on something like this, and they get on it with the intention of finding something they don't like and then whining about it.
Yeah. But I mean, later on, I've had less issues. I've stealthed through entire Imperial bases with doing stealth and not being seen because I knew what I was doing. But early on, it's a bit rough. Later on, it's not great. I think you kind of mentioned one thing is you don't have a huge amount of option to customize, customize your character. It'd be nice if you could choose to, like, I want to be better at stealth, or I want to be better at shooting, or you can't really do that. You can basically unlock everything. It would be, sometimes it's nice to do that, but in terms of, I think those are the other thing is the one I've already mentioned, or I mentioned part of it. You can't steal other people's speeder bikes, which is annoying. Similarly to that, you can pick up other people's weapons, but only temporarily. So like you can pick up a stormtrooper's blaster or a bigger gun, but once they've run out, then you have to put it down and you can't keep it. So you have one pistol you have all the way through the game, and you can modify your pistol so it gets better over time, it gets different functions. But it would be nice to have a bigger choice of weaponry, maybe.
And maybe character customization. I could see that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's one of those things. If you have character customization, then your character can't have a name. So then you're playing as you, but then everyone, how do you get referred to in the game? I mean, actually, like I said, this company makes all the Assassin's Creed game. None of the Assassin's Creed games have had character customization. Some of them have had a choice of a male or female character, but then your character always had like one of two names. So I still doesn't bother me. You can have games where you're playing as yourself, but then you have that bit where you're not quite in the story because everyone has to talk about you. Whereas it's nice to have a name for the character and you're part of a story. But it can go either way. In terms of the really good things, like I said, I've already said it. The feeling like you're in Star Wars is great. The whole idea of the reputation system between the different factions is good, and I haven't seen that in many other games. And you do have to play with it because to start with, I wanted Crimson Dawn to really like me, but I couldn't do that without pissing off the Pikes because that was the only other syndicate on the first planet. And then you get to another planet, and now you've got the Hutts. So it's like, right, well, I want to get in with the Pikes again, so I'll do that by pissing off. So you have to juggle that. You can't please everyone. When you get missions to like screw over the Imperials, you're like, yeah, great, because they don't keep a record on me. They're either after me right there and then, or they've forgotten about me. Whereas everybody else has a memory. That's a really nice thing. But probably the best thing is it's the little creature which you've got over your head. So there's a little alien dude that you have with you called Nyx, and he is undoubtedly, for me, he's the thing that makes the character not useless. She's not. I mean, she can fly a ship and she can shoot okay, but she 100% relies on this little guy. He distracts bad guys. So when you're stealthing, that's what you need to do. You send him over. He distracts the bad guy. The bad guy turns around. You walk straight behind the bad guy's back. Or he attacks them and then you jump in and beat them up as well. He can set off things that explode. He can turn on and off switches. He can. There's a point where like
this gives you the assist.
It does.
That you wouldn't have if this is just a solo game. This expands the reach of the character and the support.
I think without that, it would feel like a lot of other games. With him, actually, it doesn't feel like other games because most other games do not. There's these games where there's these hacker games called Watch Dogs where you can hack other things. So it's kind of like that because he's running and doing it. But it is quite cool. And you're like, oh, there's a switch up there I can't reach. And he runs along and he climbs up and then he goes and pulls the lever. And he is incredibly useful. And you kind of wish you had 2 or 3 of him. But yeah, without him, the game would be impossible. But it's funny playing the story thinking like, this person would be utterly useless if she didn't have this little creature because she wouldn't be able to pull off any of these heists. She wouldn't be able to do any smuggling. She wouldn't be able to do any thieving or sneaking. She'd struggle to do a lot of her fighting. He's doing like a lot of the heavy lifting. And there is a point where you lose him for a bit and it is rough because all of a sudden you lose all of the things he can do and you've been relying on for hours and you're like, oh, I can't do this anymore. And he's a cute little character as well. So he's good. I think another one thing that is quite good, like I said, you can't choose how to build your character, but the way you unlock stuff is as you play the game and do certain things, you unlock more ability. So it like if you choose to, I'm going to try doing things in a certain way. I'm going to try doing this particular action. I haven't tried yet. I'm going to explore places. As you do that, so essentially as you play the game, you unlock more clever things your character can do, which is quite nice because in a lot of games it's like D&D. You earn XP. And you spend the XP to unlock a new ability. Here, actually, you will unlock stuff if you play the game. And if you just never do anything interesting, you won't unlock the other stuff, which you don't need to. And you can play Sabacc, which is like playing Sabacc. You can gamble on the horse races as well, which are fixed.
Of course they are.
Yeah. bloody huts.
Interesting.
But yeah, it's genuinely, it's not a perfect game. It's kind of a
No game
7.5 out of 10. But I think for what they were trying to achieve for a new game that does not have like the benefit of having loads of games that have come before it, and they've built on the foundation of that, it's a really good effort. And if you like this kind of game, I think you'd probably like it. If you like Star Wars, you will love this game. Oh, unless you're one of those people that only likes the prequels and all you care about is Jedi and clones, then yeah, forget it. But if you like, but proper Star Wars, OG original trilogy Star Wars, this game's great. This is the Star Wars game I've been waiting, like a good chunk of my life to play. So
that's very cool. All right. Okay. So I'm not going to play it because I don't play computer games. But it does sound like something that people should give a fair shake to, and not be internet trolls, and not lose the ability or refuse to use the ability to differentiate real from fictional.
Yeah.
And also that people shouldn't so egotistically think that all of their preferences and whims should dictate the actions of everybody else in the freaking world, and it should shape around their felt needs that change moment to moment. So if you're one of those people, I pity you. You should change your ways. No, it's just so annoying, and it's so hard. It's so hard to engage in any. I avoid.
I avoid
anything that has a whiff of fandom. I stay away from, because
I mean, I do, but it's a case of like finding. I mean, Reddit's the main one. Like I don't post on YouTube. I will watch YouTube things, but I'll only post into the ones where everyone's positive. On Reddit, it's a case of there are groups on Reddit that literally we are only positive, like Star Wars Cantina. We will only say positive things. If you want to say negative stuff, go to one of the groups. There's plenty of groups hating on Star Wars. Go to the rest of them. Yeah. There are groups you can find where it's like, right, this is a group where we're only going to be positive. Now, okay, that makes it difficult if people have genuine concerns about things. But
it's hard. Once you open up the door and you start letting in the trolls, it's
just nice if everyone's happy and saying nice things. It's just
plummet.
Yeah, it's just better if people are being nice and positive about things. And okay, you do sometimes need to be critical of things, but there's a fine line between being critical and just kind of just losing the plot and just having a go at something. Yeah, exactly.
Just like, and getting off on the fact that you're being a jackass, and really, I mean, when you think about it, I think for a lot of these people, it's ego. It's the ego boost they get out of the attention they get by being provocative, or it's also an ego boost because then they get to tell you why they're right about stuff that's not real. So
there you go. Ignore, if you've seen people saying Star Wars Outlaws is terrible, ignore them. Like, don't just take my
shake. If you're
give it a go.
Person.
If you don't want to sign up for Ubisoft Plus, fair enough. Wait till it's on sale and buy it. But definitely have a look at this game if you're into Star Wars in any way, because this is a lot of fun, and I've really
you made it. I think you made it clear, even for someone like me who's not a computer gamer, you made it clear that there is utility either directly flowing from this for use at a Star Wars tabletop, or in like sci-fi tabletop in general, or maybe just for generic ideas. And there's also the value, just the fun value in, again, scratching the Star Wars itch. Very cool.
Definitely. It's great at scratching the Star Wars itch.
Great.
It really does that.
All right. Well, there we go. Great. I believe that's our first video game review.
I think I've talked about video games in like fictional properties, but we've never reviewed a video. So that is our first video game review.
All right. Well, groovy. If you have played this and you have a reasonable opinion about it, are willing to engage in reasonable conversation about it, drop some comments, join the Discord. If you're an angry troll, don't. And otherwise, subscribe to the pod, join the Discord, join the conversation.
Thank you, as always, for listening to Fluff and Crunch. You can join our Discord, you can subscribe to the podcast, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, all through the links in the show notes. Thanks again. Have a great day. We look forward to talking with you.